No, de todos modos. Hi again. I hope this time it works better. I'm sorry about all those difficulties, but yeah. I think we are working well, and we are having some interesting information. So let's try again with this new setting in the computer and the internet setting and all that stuff. I hope we can work like more fluently this time. Here we go. So extensive reading gives your students all those opportunities to get grammar structures, to get language in use actually, and that's really interesting and that's helpful for them, and it's also helpful for you, right? So mm, yeah, through extensive reading, your students can develop like the ability to read, but also linguistic competences, vocabulary, spelling, and writing, among others, right? That you can like guess easily, right? Like all this information about punctuation marks and also the use of the language itself. It's not just the proper or correct structure of it, but the use, the way they like natives use the language, or they put the words together in order to look more natural. So that's also something your students can get from this reading extensively. And studies have found that reading for pleasure and reading without looking up all the unknown words are highly correlated with overall language proficiency. It's been demonstrated that those people who read for pleasure and who don't worry about the language meaning, like language structures, and who don't say, I don't understand this word, I will stop and look for it in a dictionary. So if they don't do this, they can develop a better command of language, right? And it's related with this. So the more your students read, the more proficient they will become in terms of the use of the language. And we continue with this. The characteristics of extensive reading are long exposure to it, like they don't just read for 5 minutes, they read for longer. They have to do it like for 30 minutes, an hour a day. So that's why it's called for like reading for pleasure, because that's how the students they don't have a fixed schedule. They do it because they want, and they do it because they enjoy doing it. It doesn't have a specific objective. It's just like they just read because they want to read. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot set an objective for this. You could, if you want. It's not good for integrated skills. It means that you don't need to have your students speaking after it. Not always, and not necessarily. It's just reading, right? Remember, we don't have to have our students producing something all the times. We need to give the appropriate amount of space for each of the skills. So if it's just reading, don't become this kind of teacher who always demands from students a product and evidence about everything, right? Don't overwhelm them with this. It's not like, well, now you will do this, now you will do that. There is when the pleasure ends. There is when your students feel more stressed about about the deadline of that product you are assigning than in actually paying attention to what they read. So in here, you just have to trust them, and you need to understand that if they read, then it will be helpful for them. If they don't, then it's up to them. That's the decision they're making. So I know it's difficult, especially because teachers are actually, or we are actually required with all those evidences of your students' progress. And that's something like the principals or like the coordinators don't understand. Products don't necessarily mean that the students are learning. It's just a product. And that's something that probably students could have done 1 minute before hanging in, like hang out. No, it's not hang out. Is that the word? No, the word is hand in. Like they can just do it before, like 5 minutes before handing the assignment in. So we need to change this paradigm, like this concept of products. Sometimes it's just a matter of confidence and trust. Like, okay, well, of trust, that's the word. Like, okay, if you're reading, it will be helpful. If you are not, then I'm sorry. So characteristics, I was telling you about this integrated skill situation, that it's not like very useful, the extensive reading. Nevertheless, it could work and you can adapt it, of course. And this free atmosphere, the laissez-faire atmosphere, it's necessary, right? With some probably background music in a comfortable place. Like probably you can have these reading clubs in which you can even bring some coffee, cookies, for your students to feel comfortable and enjoy reading, and actually like focus on what they're doing, focus on reading, focus on the use of language, and with like a stress-free environment for them to practice more their skills or develop their skills in reading. Some elements of reading which are really important are those three: reading rate, fluency, and automaticity or automaticity. I'm sorry. The reading rate actually refers to like the words someone can read per minute, right? It involves the automaticity. I think I made a mistake in the word, like in the last word in the slide. Don't worry. So it's automaticity of reading. You will see what it means later on. And the more automatic reading is, the higher the rate will be. So you will see what automatic reading means. So this rate is measured by counting the number of words in a specific passage and timing the reader, right? So your rate refers to the amount of words you can read within a period of time. That's what it is. Then we have fluency, that it is defined as the ability to read with speed, accuracy, and proper expression, right? It's not just reading fast, because some people can read actually like really fast, but it doesn't mean they're giving the correct intonation, pronunciation, and that they are pronouncing each of the words as they should be, right? Sometimes people start reading and they go like, and then you say, what? I didn't even get one of the words you said. So that's why it's not just a matter of speed, but also accuracy. How how well they can actually pronounce the word. I think in Spanish it's called dicción, or diction in English. I think it is like how good you pronounce or sound each word, and how good it could be understood by the other person, right? So that's what fluency means. And in order to understand what they read, children or students must be able to read fluently, whether they are reading aloud or silently. Because sometimes when our students are reading, they go like, or they stop because they don't know a word or because they don't know something. Sorry, can you hear me now? Can you see? Okay, so then we come to automaticity, that refers to the fast, effortless word recognition that comes with a great deal of reading practice, right? It's like you can just read fast. It's quite similar um, to reading, no, yes, to reading great. but it doesn't necessarily mean to the time it takes for you to read something. But it's like the effortless adjective is an important word here. It's a keyword because it's you can read and understand and recognize the elements of reading without a big effort, right? And it can be developed after this practice you give your students. All right. And now we go with grading. It's just two more slides to go, and then we'll finish. Don't worry so much about these. Remember, I told you that today was like simpler and like not so stressful as it happened last week for some of you, and for me, I told you too. But yeah, here we go. In terms of teaching grading, we have to understand the following concepts and the following like elements of reading and how it was understood in the past, right? Before, people thought, or teachers or scientists thought, that we learned to write if we are members of a literate society. It means that if the people who you are who you live with, again, if you live with people who can write, then you will be able to write at some point. That's what they thought before, and usually not like as something necessary, but sometimes it happened that you learn to write if someone teach you how to do it. They thought that it happened in the past, which we know it's not true nowadays, right? And written language is simply the graphic representation of spoken language. That's also a past idea. And that written performance is much like oral performance with the difference of the codes. In spoken language, it is more like produced with the language, but with written language is with your hand, right? And a pen or a pencil or whatever the materials you need. So those were some beliefs from the past. But now we understand writing is not that. We understand writing is more complex than that, actually, and it involves other processes that are more linked to brain things, like brain stuff, right? It involves thinking, drafting, revising, and those stages or those processes require more specialized skills than simply interaction with the society where you live or with the community where you live. They require more demand from your brain. They require more demand from you, actually. So those skills are not developed naturally by the speaker or by the writer, right? Those skills are necessary to be developed. Remember, all of us might be able to write, but as the physical skill, my body can write. I know how to hold a pen, and I know I need something like a surface to write on, and I know the process of it. But it doesn't mean I know how to write, how to compose. That would be a better word, I think, because writing is an art and it has a process, a specific process that requires like specific skills, right? So different types of such as, right, like there are different types of writing, like academic writing and traditional styles. We can go like on and on with different categories for writing, like pleasure writing, um, different writings. But yeah, we will focus on two different types: academic writing, because we're teachers, and also like social writing, what we need to interact socially. And oh no, this slide is moved, but okay, yeah, it's we can see anyways. We have this information about the writing process, right? Because it is a process. It's not just holding a pen and start writing whatever comes to your mind. We need to teach our students under this process. Pre-writing, that it means thinking or start to organize information through brainstorming processes and planning your writing. So the skills your students need are not just about language knowledge, as we mentioned before. They need to know how to think and how to take all that information they have created out of the brain and put it into paper, right? Or put it on paper. So they need to think. You need to teach them how to think in order to be able to grind. So they need to know how to brainstorm, how to organize this information, how to plan their grinding, right? They need skills also for drafting, which is quickly putting like all your ideas on paper, and that is an important process. And also revising, right? Reworking, it says, the organization and details. You need to check what you wrote, modify it. Then it needs like more linguistic competences, right? Because they need to know how to write a word, how to spell it correctly, how to give coherence and cohesion, right? And then we go with editing, that it refers to this process in which a person rewrites some parts, corrects like spelling, grammar, capitalization aspects, punctuation aspects, and also details with cohesion and coherence, right? Like I can't understand your idea here. Probably it was because you used like not appropriate words, or it's probably because you couldn't just express your ideas clearly, because sometimes we don't even understand what we want to express. Then we have the evaluation process, that is more like a process in which someone reflects on what they read, like someone who not just read but wrote, right? They evaluate what they wrote, what one person wrote, and they say, well, I think this is actually delivering the message that was intended since the very beginning, or I consider this is a good text or not because of this or that. Or you can say that probably they need to add some more information, they need to add some more details. Yeah, this process is important also. And then at the end, the publishing process, like whether it would be online, it would be a letter, a poster, a message. Like people need to have different skills to publish a text. So as you could see here, all the different stages in this writing process demand different kinds of skills, and they are not all of them focused on grammar or on language or on linguistic features. They refer probably to other kind of skills we need to develop, right? That they go more in terms of communication, in terms of interaction, in terms of other things, right? All right, so I would like to listen to your impressions. Well, not listen because this is slow already. So I think it will become slower if we start working like all together in the same connection. So, what about you guys grading your comments? We will stop here with the presentation because that's the only thing I wanted to share with you today. But I need to listen to you, like listen from you what you think about reading and writing. We need more information about those two skills, but I need to give it to you like not like we did last class. That was a big bunch of information. Yes, Terry. I think yes. Proofreading. I think proofreading goes more like it's more related to evaluating. I think editing it's not proofreading, but I think it's more related to evaluating because you read and then you start analyzing, reflecting, and that's what it is. Because if you understand the proofreading term or definition, mm, yes, no, it is more linked to the other stage, the evaluating process. Hmm. That's it. So proofreading goes more for this process of seeing the whole thing together, like if it is coherent, if it makes sense, and not simply changing words or changing misspelled words, or like choosing some words instead of others because they've been repeated. Yeah, that's editing. But proofreading, it's more a more conscious process, right? What else? Tell me more comments, more questions, concerns, complaints. You can also tell me. Sandra is mentioning again this phrase I said about grading, that I said grading is an art because it is an art, right? I think literature is considered one of the fine arts because it is such a complex process, right? We have to develop a lot of skills. It's not the same creating something in your brain, something you can understand because of the information and experiences you have. I'm actually putting it on paper and pretending people can understand. Probably I can describe a place I've been to, but if you haven't been there, you won't understand most of the things I write or I say. So there are people who can actually share this information, and they are like very skillful to use the appropriate words to make other people feel as they feel. And that's interesting, right? That's amazing. When I read some books, I feel like very amazed to see the words the people use and how they make you actually become part of the story. So that's something not all of us can do, right? Some people are very simple and they say, like, yeah, it's cool. I mean, and it has to do with vocabulary. That's one of the most important things to consider when writing. Vocabulary limits, or it's a boundary for writing skills, right? If we don't have like a lot of words, or not a lot, but if we don't have like the appropriate words to express our ideas, we can simply write, right? Or we can be repetitive. For example, it is the same as it happens in speaking. Sometimes I use the same words because my vocabulary it's not rich enough, and that's telling me I need to read and I need to learn more words, right? But it happens to some people that when we acquire certain level of proficiency in a language, we stop learning, not because our brain doesn't allow us to learn, but it's because we said, okay, I've learned enough. I need no more words, or not as I needed them before, because now I can express myself. You know, if I don't know one word, I can just use a definition, or I can point at something, or I can like use other meta linguistic strategies, right? If I don't know a word of something, I just can Google it and show the picture to the person, or I can find the word on my dictionary. And those are also strategies we need to teach our students, right? When you talk, you can use, or when you write, there are other tools you can use. It's not just your brain. Writing can also be for pleasure. Yes, yes, definitely true. And it's cool, right? For example, when you have your diaries, your logs, or like some psychologists use it as a technique to for their therapy. So it's interesting. Can I explain again the bottom up and the top down? It was bottom up and top down strategies. Right. I'll do it. Hold on. Here it comes. Just wait. Bottom up in simple words. Bottom up strategies or skills refer to the knowledge of language, right? Linguistic things like also linguistic data processing mechanisms refers to understanding the word, knowing what part of the speech it is, the function of the word, all that has to do with theory of the language, right? Like for you need to know what a period is used for and what it means in the text, etc., etc. And top-down skills or strategies refer to your background knowledge of the content or of the topic the text is talking about, right? And also it refers to your experiences, your feelings and emotions towards certain topics. So bottom up, language, grammar, all the skills, right? Like grammar skills and all that stuff. And top down, knowledge, culture, experience of the topics, right? Not the language, but the topic itself. I hope it's clearer now. Writing a diary can be for pleasure. Yeah, I just said it, and that's like a common practice for most adolescents and also adults, right? Um, and now we write on Facebook, Twitter. It's a new way of communicating. Some people, especially like adults, say like, "You're writing everything on Facebook. You're everyone, like you're letting everyone know what you think." But that's the new culture. That's how things work now, right? Before, people didn't use it, of course, because there were not computers as there are now. There were not like social networks as that are now. So that's how we communicate, and that's a new way that you should consider when teaching your students, right? Writing is not just writing a letter. We don't write letters anymore. We write emails. We send WhatsApps. We write on Facebook posts, and teachers get updated with that, right? That's important. Writing Facebook entry, I think, is more useful now for your students than writing a formal letter. We wish those things never ended, like the formality and the nice things of then sending letters, but it's not practical. It's not useful anymore. Talking about reading, I mentioned that cafe literario activity could be an appropriate activity to develop those skills and the right environment. Yes, exactly. Think of any nice place and environment with your students where your students can read, share, and understand. And that's the perfect environment. Writing is the most difficult skill for me. Yes, it is sometimes. Well, it's not for me. I think the most difficult thing for me to do is speaking because of the boundaries and the mm, problems I've told you before. Like, I think of so many things at once that I don't know how to let them go through my mouth. And sometimes it happens, well, not sometimes, it always happens to me in Spanish also. This problem, esta diarrea lingüística que tengo, it's also like a problem that comes from my mother tongue, right? I sometimes I speak so fast because there are so many things I'm thinking like at the same time that it's difficult. But yeah, we need to overcome those problems. We need to teach our students to overcome them. Yes, it is clear now. Perfect, Sandra. Yay. So, teachers, let me know if there are more questions. If not, I think we can finish here today, and then I'll be in touch with you. And we will continue working next Saturday because tomorrow it's Teachers' Day. So, we're not working tomorrow. We're having party at home. And I just want to tell you congratulations to all of you. You're amazing teachers. You are amazing people, and I really, I feel so proud of you because you are like trying to learn more, and you are investing your time in learning, and that just talks about a committed person with what you guys do. So I think your students are lucky to have you as their teachers, and I just want to tell you congratulations and thank you for being here. Also, that's also very important. It is difficult to teach writing and not correct too many mistakes. I know, I know. And then we're used to do that, Terry. Sometimes we need again to like to analyze what is more important when we are teaching to write. If we're more worried about spelling, if we're worried about grammar structures, if we're worried about cohesion and coherence, that's something we need to like decide. We cannot check everything at once, and we cannot ask our students to do all of it at once. Remember, there are two things we have to consider that are those. I think was accuracy and we could also call it fluency, like how fast they write without taking or making use of other resources like a dictionary, for example. So we have to consider and to decide what we want to work with during certain activities. Thank you, Coco. Thank you very much. Writing needs vocabulary, grammar, and spelling. Yes, it's an integration of many skills, and not just that, also punctuation, and it also needs like these things of cohesion, coherence, like how understandable something is when it's written, and it also needs this style. And as the register we have when we speak, if it's formal or informal, it also needs to be considered when writing. And the intention, the audience, it's such a difficult thing, right? I'm a spelling fanatic. Are you? Oh no, you shouldn't have said that. Now I feel more nervous when I am working with you because spelling is one of the most difficult things for me. I always want to double the S's and I want to double the P's. I want to double the letters in all the words. But yes, that's probably something that was caused by the teachers you had when you were like studying, when you were in school, or it has to do with your personality too, right? Some people don't like spelling mistakes, and some people are actually um, rude about that, right? Like I remember I had a teacher who I loved and I really admire, and it was thanks to her that I made a bigger effort to continue learning English. That I wrote glove like the planet Earth, but I misspelled that word and I wrote it with the incorrect B. So she told me it's with the other V, bruto. She told me bruto, and it was like um, I was like at that moment I laughed a lot because it was funny, but then I felt like I don't know. It was like oh everyone heard she told me bruto. She called me bruto, and my classmates will tell me bruto for 3 weeks. But yeah, it helped me. And sometimes those things are also like difficult to do in your classes, right? We don't know how to correct our students and we don't know if they need that correction. That's why feedback should be something we decide with our students. It's not something you have to decide. You don't have to tell them what is more important for them. They actually need to do that part of the job. If they should ask you like what could I do to improve these because I think I'm not working well with this. So there is when you can tell them like yes you're doing it all right, but I would recommend you to work on this. But we don't know what they actually need, right? We just know what they might need and what we think they need, but it's not necessarily what they actually need. Sometimes I think I'll get ocular cancer with those misspelled words in Spanish. I know, I know. Thank you and happy Teachers Day. Thanks, Sandra. I know that was like too graphical. I don't know. It was actually funny. All right. Well, I think we can finish here. Thank you very much, all of you. And I'll see you on Saturday. Please let me know what time it's better for you to work. And just send a message through the WhatsApp group. And yes, we will have an excellent class on Saturday. And goodbye, everyone.